Please note, some of the guards have been removed from the machinery in the making of this video. This was for video purposes only. Operate all machines with all guards in place. And remember to work safe. Thank you for watching. Hi. So the next step will be masking the drum off to lay it out for hardware. And I used a small table which I made, revolving table, and is labeled so it helps me to line up the shell, and it comes in really handy for doing layout and hardware. So I just put the shell on and line it up, center it, and you can see the snare bed, and there's a spot where a line right in the center. It shows me how to line it up. This is a Bavinga Purple Heart shell, and the next step would be to put a hoop over it, and you have to be careful that you don't scratch the shell when you're putting the hoop on. And this is going to help me line up where I'm going to apply my masking tape to lay out for hardware. And I use small spacers around the hoop so it keeps an even space all the way around. Now I have different thickness spacers because some shells are a little bit smaller than others, or a little bit bigger. So with this one I'm using the thin spacers. Just work my way around. A little bit of dust there. And when I'm happy I got the spacing right all the way around, then I can line the hoop up with the marks on the table, and I'm ready to apply my masking tape. So it's pretty easy to see where to apply the tape. I usually use a piece longer than the shell, so it goes over the inside. You can make a little flap on it, just so it's easy to grab a hold of to take off. And I'm going to go around all 10 lugs and put tape. And I'll mask off for the butt and the throw off and the air vent. It's just time-consuming work. This is the easiest way I've found of doing this. Just work my way around. I have all the lugs masked off. It takes a bit of time to get the tape all on. You can do this your own way too. You can measure. I just find it easier using a hoop. That way I know everything's going to line up perfectly. If you're doing one shell or two shells, you can just measure it out. If you're going to keep making shells, you're probably going to want to build something like this. A couple more pieces to go. I like the tape going up over the top. It's easier to grab a hold of when you go to take it off. Now I do put some shorter pieces on, like for the air vent, the strainer, and the butt. But most of them go over the top. And that'll be for the strainer. And that's labeled right on the little table I have there. So it's pretty easy to line up. And for the butt end. And that looks good. The next thing I want to do is lay out lines on each piece of tape, and I'm going to use a small square for that. And you have to make sure the square is flat on the edge of the drum. It can very easily be out, so I usually double check these. And I can see fairly easily exactly where to draw the pencil line, so that the lugs and everything will line up properly. It's a pretty good system. As long as you're sure that that the shell is centered in the hoop. If it's not, your lugs are going to be off. So lining it up and centering it properly is very important. I'm going to mark the center where the butt's going, and then I can measure out each side from the center where I'm going to drill it out. This is the easy part after all that sanding. And I just keep working my way around until I have everything marked out. And just double check things, make sure everything's lining up properly. It's looking good. So when I'm satisfied there, I can remove the shell. Be sure to double check everything. I'm going to take the shell out of the hoop. And my spacers. Now I'm going to put the shell back on and line it up. for the strainer and the butt. So I'm going to measure, because I have snare beds cut, I have to put the drum back on the table to measure for the strainer and the butt end. And I'll just measure from the surface of the table. I'm going to go 2 inches up for the bottom hole, and then whatever the distance needed for the second hole for the strainer. And for the butt end, I'm going to measure up 1.5 inches from the surface of the table. And that's pretty easy. Now measuring that lug to know where I want to drill my holes. So I'm going to find the center, mark out where the lug is going to be positioned, and measure the other way just to be sure. Now it was a little off, so I'm going to change that one. You have to get it dead on if you want it to work out right. I'm going to try, measure it out where it's going to be drilled for the lug. You have to be very precise with that. Now I'm going to take a lug and position it on the holes just to double check and make sure that it's going to fit right. Now you can do this just by measuring, but I like to try the lug on, really check it closely to make sure the holes are positioned right. You don't want to drill any holes in the wrong spot. Now I'm going to use my square again and set it up with the lines for the lug holes. And I'm going to mark out the rest of the lugs. Just check that with a pencil, make sure it's on. And I'm just going to work my way around the shell. I'm going to check this one over again, just to be sure that it's right. And I'll put the lug on there again. And this one works out perfect. So I'm ready to lay out the lines for the rest of the lugs. And it'll go a bit quicker now. I just hold the drum with my legs for this part. Watch out for that snare bed. And we'll go around, do one side, flip it over and do the other side. And this way you get to lay out the lines fairly quickly, and you know that they're all in the right spot because I double checked everything. Do the other side. It's going to make a nice drum. And I'll get all my lines laid out. I'm going to measure for the air hole, for the air vent. And that's going to be centered. I'll do that, mark it, and I'll check it. That looks good. Now I'm going to measure out for the butt end. That's a measure from the center line. I think it's a 1-inch spacing I'm using. And that's the spot where the butt end is going to go. So that's it. I've got all my lines laid out. And that shell is ready to be drilled. Just double check everything, make sure it's good. And now I'm going on to another shell, putting the hoop over, carefully sliding it down. Don't want any scratches on the drum. And I'm going to line that up with the table and line the shell up with that. Same spacers again. Got to have an even space all the way around. Just double checking that. And I'm ready to put my tape on. So it's the same as the previous shell. This is a Purple Heart shell. It's very hard to tell where the staves are. The grain goes together so nice that it's difficult to tell, but you have to be careful and take your time. Make sure you get it lined up properly before you put any tape on. The system works out real nice, and the finished product goes together very nice. So I'll work my way around. I'm ready to put the tape onto the air vent. Just double check that. Now I'm going to use the square again to lay out the lines for all the hardware. And this goes pretty quick. You just have to be sure that the square is tight against the bearing edge, because it's very easy to be off on that. So I'll always check my my layout lines, one more time before I drill any holes. At this point, we don't want to ruin anything. And I can get all my lines drawn. Center line for the butt end. I'm going to find the center again. And then you can work out each way from the center to draw out the lines for the lug, which I've already measured, so I know where I want to draw the lines at. And I'm going to double check that again with the lug. I don't trust my measurements. I want to see that they line up properly. And it's easy to be off a little bit in this. So you might have to redo your lines a couple of times. Now I'm ready to set up the square again. Mark out the lines for all the lugs. double check that with a pencil. That looks good. Now I'll try one. See what I think. I'm going to check that. And it came out good, so now I'm going to draw my lines. And watch out for that snare bed again. Have to turn the square around. Have to make sure that square is flat on the bearing edge. And lay out for the air hole. And double check it. Looks good. I'm going on to another shell. Now I'm using a thicker spacer with this one. The shell's a slight bit smaller than those other ones were. And that's normal. Just use a thicker spacer to center the shell inside the hoop. And once I get that lined up and centered, then I put my tape on, same as the previous shells, and then lay out all the lines again. Just double check that, make sure it's in the right spot. And you can line that up with the hoop by eye. You can see where the lugs are supposed to mount. And it works out pretty good for that. I'll work my way all the way around again. Then I'll take the hoop out again, because I want to put the shell on the table to measure for the strainer and butt end from the surface of the table. So I line that back up again. This is a Babinga shell, 8-inch. And it's another shell, Babinga maple. And now we're getting used to adding spacers, so it goes fairly quickly. Lay out the lines again. And I have to double check everything. I don't want to drill any holes in the wrong spot. It'll ruin a shell pretty quick. Now I'm going to measure for the butt end and the strainer again from the surface of the table, because of the cutout for the snare beds. Use a tape measure. And the spacing for the throw off is 7/8 center to center for the holes. I'm ready to draw my lines out again. Make sure you got good lighting for that. That was where the snare bed was. Keep that square tight against the drum shell. And once I do all the shells this way, then I'll be ready to go on to the next step, which will be drilling the holes out. So you have to do this job right in order for all the holes to be in the proper spots. So you have to be careful. This goes fairly quickly. So this is my last shell, and that's about it for this video. Just double checking that. Whoops. And then I'll be heading out to the shop to drill out the holes for the hardware for the next video.